I am back here. So I mentioned before that we had two packages that are mainly for prototyping. So we removed one of them, that it was the insecure package. And there is another one that is the auto-publish that we need to remove. So what this package does is basically, if we check the mini-mongo on the Meteor Dev Tools, we can see that all the contacts, they are published to the client side, and we didn't instruct Meteor to do that. So this package does this automatically. And this is good for prototyping, but for real apps, we have to think about which data do we need at which moment. And then we need to create a publication that it will publish a set of data. And on the screen, or when we need this kind of data, we have to subscribe to this set of data, and then they will be published to mini-mongo. So let's start removing the auto-publish package, and we could edit this file, or we can just run this command, meteor remove auto-publish. This will remove the package from here, and Meteor will detect that we removed this package. It will reload our app. And if we check now, the contact list is empty. And you can see that in mini-mongo, contacts is also empty. So now we need to create this publication, and then we will subscribe to it. And how we do that? Well, let's go to the API folder inside imports, and let's create a new file called contacts publications.js. And inside here, we are going to create our publications related to the contacts. Let's create the publication. For this, we just have to call meteor.publish. We give it a name that it will be all contacts, and we pass a function that I will call it publish all contacts. And then inside this function, I need to return the data that I want to make it available. So I will return contacts collection dot find. So this will return all the contacts that we have in the database. I will just import Meteor from here as well. And that's it. This is our publication. Now we need to import this file in our main.js server. Notice that this is just a simple example, but when we are creating publications, we should fetch as little data as possible. And we are going to create other publication very soon, and I think it will be more clear. It's also important to understand that we are not returning the data directly from here. We are returning something called a cursor, and I will show you what a cursor is. And when you create a publication and return a cursor, we are creating something called a live query. And when you create a live query, internally, Meteor will create an observer that will watch the data in MongoDB. So depending on which collection we are using and which parameters, which filters we are using, this observer will notify if the data changes, and then this query will be invalidated if the data changes, and it will rerun. So Meteor will make sure that the data will be always up to date on mini-mongo. So let's go there to import this publication, this file that we just created. So it is imports API contacts publications. Now we need to change the client side. Before these changes, we were expecting that the data was available in mini-mongo. All the data was available in mini-mongo, and that's not the case anymore. We need to subscribe to the publication that we just created. And for this, we are going to import a new hook that we have that is called use subscribe, and we're going to use it like this. So we call it, and we have to pass the name of the publication, that is all contacts. And what this hook will do is to send a message to the server side. So the client side will send a message to the server side saying that we want to watch, we want to subscribe to this publication. And then the client side has to wait for an answer. So we need to receive this is loading, that it is a function. that it will tell me that the subscription is okay or not. And then later we will be able to use this is loading like this. So we can check if it is loading, then we can show a loading message or a spinner, something like that. If not, it's because it is finished, and then we can just present the data. So I'm just showing how we could use that, but it will not be exactly like this. So, okay, we are subscribed to the alt contacts, and then now we are going to use another hook that is the use find. So we could still use use tracker, but use find, it is a new hook that has a better way to handle our publications. So we are going to use this one. And basically it will work in almost the same way as the use tracker. So I will declare a variable called contacts, and we'll call use find. Right here, we pass a function, and it will be very similar to this one. So I'll just copy from here and return this. When you're using the use find, we don't need to fetch in the end of the function. So I will remove this, because remember that this find function will return a cursor, and the cursor is what the use find hook needs. So I will just comment this code for the moment. And now we have the subscription. We are using the use find. WebStorm is complaining here because you could pass another parameter, but it is an optional parameter and I won't pass it for the moment. Let's remove the use tracker import because we are not using anymore. And so I will remove the commented code. And now we can use this is loading to check if the subscription is ready or not. So just for the moment, and I will improve this later, but I will check if is loading. We can return just something like this, loading. And if not, this will return false, and then it will present the data. So let's test this. Let's see how it is working. So our application is running, I think. Yeah, it is running. So let's see on the browser how it is behaving. We have this. I will just refresh. Oh, can you see it? We can see that loading that I'm talking about. And we can also check on Minimongo, on the Meteor Dev Tools. In the Minimongo tab, we can see that all the data is here. And if we change just to something wrong, just a wrong name of this publication, we will see that we have no data anymore. And the loading keeps there. So let's fix this and put the right name. And it is working. There's just one more thing that we should do to improve our code and to improve performance. So this contacts, we are mapping it here to element of the list. So what I am going to do now, I will refactor this a little bit. So I will extract this code from here, and I will create another small component called contact item. And this will return, this will return that code that we just extracted. So like this, okay. And then we don't need this anymore. Let me remove it. And we were expecting a person, but it would be better to call this a contact, right? So I will just refactor this and rename to contact. All right. And then going back to here to the mapping, I will just render that component contact item. And then I have to pass a contact parameter. And I will also rename this. I will remove this as we're not using anymore. And we also need to provide a key to React, I will use the contact.id. So this is just the first part. Let's see if it is still working. There's something wrong. Let's check what is wrong. We are passing the contact. Oh, I think I know it. We have to receive an object. So let me fix this. And yeah, it's okay now. And then the optimization that I was talking about is to use React Memo. So let's import from React the Memo function right here. And then on the contact item, we're going to call this function right here, and we will encapsulate everything inside React Memo. And Memo is built to optimize and reduce the number of times that a component renders. And the useFind hook, it's created to work really well with Memo. So this is the recommended way of using useFind. So let's save this and check. And everything looks good. Let me just do a refresh and it looks okay. And now I just want to show you the cursor. So let me change this. I will create a variable called result right here, and I will return it. But before that, I want to print this result on the console so we can see the cursor from MongoDB. So let's have a look on the console on Chrome, and this is what a cursor is. So it is an object that it will be used by the live queries. And you can see that we have the name of the collection. We have the sorting that we are using. It is here. If you are using other parameters like fields or limit, all of them would be here. So a cursor will have everything we need to fetch the data. And if we do something like this, if we call the fetch function on the cursor, then let's see right here. So now we have the array of contacts. So that's the difference between the cursor and when we call a fetch method. Let's revert this back. Let's remove this and return the cursor again. And it is the same on the publication, right? So this find is also returning a cursor. And we can even simplify this function. We can just return it directly like this, just to reduce one line. And let's test it again. I always like to do this refresh. It's not needed. But yeah, we could see the loading and the data is here. Now what we could do is just to improve the UI a little bit. So when we see the loading, there's no style, right? So I will just do something very simple. I will take the same components, the same visual components from Tailwind that we're using on the contact list, like this. And I think it is better to do this way using the parentheses. Yeah, and then instead of contact list, I will show you loading. And also the indentation, it's not right. We need one more div. Okay, now it looks good. So I'm just returning the loading in the same way, but then I'm using some styling from Tailwind. As everything is working fine, and actually, let's test it. Let me just add something here, just really quick, and save it. Yep, still working. And now let's remove. Okay, it's still working. So it is a good time to push our code that will trigger a deploy on Galaxy, and then we can see the project live. Let's go to the terminal right here, and I will do a git add, git commit, and I will say that we are using publications and use find. Let's just fix this. Publications, use find, and use subscribe. Okay, so it is committed and let's push. Great. This will trigger a deploy on Galaxy, and let's see if you can see that from here. I am on Meteor Cloud and I want to access Galaxy. So let's go here, applications, and that's my application, and then Galaxy. Yep, we can see that a build was started a few seconds ago. Remember that this is a free account, so Galaxy will stop our containers if no one is using. So I will just access from here, so then the container can start, but the deploy is in progress.